Hey everybody, this is Alexis with Recruiting Daily. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We are here with our friends from eTechie talking about how to go beyond the heap. We're going to look for some of the treasure in technical recruiting. Wait for Steve to help out. Yeah, he's got some slides we're going to go through. We're going to get jamming. We're going to get jamming, people. Sponsored by eTechie, like I said. If you've joined us before, you know, housekeeping. You can hear us, we can't hear you. We like it that way. Don't worry. You can still ask questions. So take a look at your control panel. If you have a question, ask. I will shout them out to Steve during. If we don't get to them during, there's going to be a Q&A portion at the end. No worries. And also, if you miss anything, we record this, so you'll see it probably later this afternoon. I try to stay on top of things, so no worries. I'm going to turn things over in just a second here to Steve. He is today's expert. His favorite word. His favorite word. Steve, take it from here and go ahead, tell us a little about yourself, and just jump right in.
Okay, fabulous. Thanks everyone for taking time out of their busy Tuesday that feels like a Monday, that feels like an I don't know day after 3 days off. This is me. If any of you know me, then you're probably chuckling like right now. If you do not know me, this is me. I'm an engineer who crossed over to the dark side. I source, I recruit, I do recruiting strategy, I train, I consult on strategy, sourcing, recruiting, social training. I'm an advisor to eTechie, the sponsor of this webinar, as well as Hire Tool and Crowded. I tweet from Levy Recruits, often with a potty mouth. I'm a founding member of ATAP, the Association of Talent Acquisition Professionals at atapglobal.org, and I blog at Recruiting Inferno and here at the RBC family and ERE. Remember, during this webinar, you can ask any questions. Noel and Alexis will shout out the ones they think are especially poignant. Other than that, I will get to them at the very end. And if I don't get to them at the very end, I will answer every blessed question. So again, on the agenda today, we're going to talk about three things. One, how to refactor your technical recruiting mindset. And by the way, we're talking about technical recruiting, but everything here also pertains to anything of a scientific nature as well. Chemists, physicists, oncologists, any person who deals with technology or science, similar type, they have similar type personalities from my experience, and much of this stuff does apply to them as well. So if you have any specific questions, again, put them in the sidebar or save them for the end. We're going to talk about how to do technical interviewing for performance as opposed to the presence or absence of buzzwords. And finally, we're going to talk about what's been happening in recruiting lately about assessment of technical people. Several years ago, if any of you are New Yorkers, there was a New York recruiting meetup quite a few years ago in which there was a panel filled with the head of the New York Python meetup, the head of the New York .NET, and the head of the New York Perl. Collectively, at the time, there were some 13,000 people in these groups. This is a question I asked all three of them, and this is from the fellow who at the time ran the Python group. He's quite well known in the Python community around the world. And the question was, why do technical people hate recruiters so much? What do they do that makes you crazy? And John replied with not answering when I asked for more specifics about the kind of work such as tech stack or interesting classes or problems. I get this one a lot, and my goal in asking for more details is to find out if I or someone I know might be a good fit. If you refuse to say anything more than uses Python, I'm probably not going to respond back. And I think generally speaking, with going after technically minded people, the more detail, the merrier. And we often have a problem in that we've all heard the adage, fake it till you make it. I don't believe that works terribly well in what we do in recruiting, technically minded people. One of the adages that is fairly common is Java is to JavaScript what car is to carpet. And we have far too many people who throw around buzzwords and throw around jargon as if it makes them sound intelligent. Quite frankly, to the people that we're going after, it makes you sound stupid. And so we have to do a better job at it. So don't be the problem. So in terms of refactoring your mindset, there are 3 areas. Number 1 is we need to identify what the real job is. Frankly, most people use a job description as the basis for outreach and quite frankly, assessment. The job description is probably one of the poorest recruiting documents of all time. In fact, it's not even a recruiting document. In most cases, it is in fact a compensation document. If anybody has been involved in job grading, you'll know what I mean. One of the things I do when I encounter a hiring manager who will say, well, why do we need to talk about this? It's just in the job description. I will take that job description. I will take out the company name, and I'll put in some random competitor's name, and I'll show it to the manager and say, look, they're looking for the same people that we're looking for. And the manager comes back and says, those rat bastards. That's not very distinguishing. If it's not distinguishing to a hiring manager, it's not going to be a particularly good document by which to get people from the outside to want to come work for you. We have to do a better job at that. I'm going to show you some ways to do that. The ecosystem logo cloud is a concept I came up with many years ago. I've shown this to CTOs and head of software development, and most of them just kind of tilt their head like a golden retriever and go, wow, I like that. And finally, we're going to talk about how deliverables sell themselves. The job description will not sell the opportunity. You won't sell the opportunity. The deliverables, what they'll be accomplishing, the OKRs, that's what's going to sell, and that's what you should be focusing on in the early part of the process. Let's go to the real job. I'm sure many here have intake meetings in which you sit with a hiring manager. I want to go over the job and discuss the opportunity so I can go and find you just the right person you need. And invariably, I'm sure many of you have had hiring managers have said, well, it's in the job description. That's when you tilt your head like a golden retriever and go, oh, okay, fine. I'll go with that. Meeting is over. You've lost the opportunity to create a wave, a big wave that you can use to sweep up all the good technical surfers out there and bring them into shore. Some of the things that I talk about, next couple of slides, we're going to talk about what the real job is. I will always go in and identify what are the OKRs. An OKR is not the goals. You know, if you look at a software developer job description, you know, the first thing is you will be responsible for all full stack coding, as if no software developer really understands that. But what about the specifics? Think of the architecture. Think of the actual environment. Think about having an agile board in which in the old days, well, the Post-it notes are up. Now we're using Jira. You can essentially, with these objective OKRs, you go to the hiring manager and you say, which of those Post-it notes, which of those deliverables, by not coming down, are impacting how you sleep, your relationship with your family, your mental health, what have you, that if I could find someone to take those Post-it notes, those specific deliverables off the board, you would interview them in a heartbeat and probably hire them. Tell me which 3 to 5 are most critical to this position. Those are what the OKRs are. Second thing in terms of a real job, it really is about beating the competition. And there are 2 important questions that I think more people need to ask. And it's a what and a why, and I'm going to talk about the why first. Every manager has target companies, and invariably in the technology sector, it's typically Google, Facebook, Amazon, who knows, Dropbox, Slack, maybe Snapchat these days, whatever the case may be. So if you go to the hiring manager during this intake strategy session, you ask them, why would the very best person at one of these companies leave there to come here? And then just go silent and wait to see if they can actually come up with a cogent answer to that. And if they can't, then you should have the courage to say, you know, we have a problem here. We need to define what it is that we're doing so special here, the value proposition that I can use when we go out and speak to people. And quite frankly, we can use these same types of problems, the OKRs, during our assessment to make the assessment, make the experience of interviewing as real and as close to the actual job as possible. Next thing, the real job is about innovation. Some of you who know me know that I'm a real fan of patents. I spent 2 years of my life writing patents with the hopes of becoming another attorney, which thankfully I did not do. But most every technology area has patents that cover things that are way out there, things that are novel, things that are special. And one of the things that I always do in terms of identifying what the real job is knowing who the competitors are. I will go look at their patent activity in the related areas, and at the end I will come up with a list of all the patents, and I'll present them to the hiring manager and say, which ones get you all hot and bothered? And out of 50 of them, they might give you 20, and then it lends itself towards additional discussion as to what is so special about them, and it gets them thinking that we also have to hire not just to deliver certain results, but to also hire to prepare ourselves for the future, which is preparing for the next wave of hiring. Anytime you are doing an intake session or identify what the real job is for now, you're also preparing yourself for future hiring. So it's not just a one-shot deal. It's for the here and for the later. Always keep that in mind. So in terms of yes.
Quick question from Susie came in that I just wanted to shout out to you. What if the positions you are recruiting for don't have a USP?
I missed that. A USP?
Mm-hmm.
A USP. I know lots of acronyms. Susie, type in the acronym, please. USP.
But you're our expert, remember? Expert.
I am an expert, but I also had 3 days off.
Unique selling proposition. Thanks,
okay, Susie. Susie, I apologize. I'm just a dumb engineer who crossed over to the dark side. Every job has a unique selling proposition, and I say that not being able to give you any more. But Susie, that is one in which I think you and I are going to have to talk offline about that, and then we can feed that back into the Recruiting Blogs feed on Twitter, or append it to the slides here. Does that seem like a plan, Alexis?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, that's good. And Susie, I'm not shoving you off to the side, but I think this is something where every job has something unique about it, and that goes, and maybe I can answer it like this, Susie. When we're doing the intake strategy session, and I'm calling it an intake strategy session because the intake meeting is typically viewed by those of us in our profession as a one-shot deal. A strategy session is a first meeting in a series of meetings. So an intake strategy session is, I like having that and letting the managers know that every week I'm going to give you a 15-minute update about what has taken place, what I found out. I'm going to feed it back to you, and maybe that our discussion then changes the search. So the thing about doing the strategy session, and this may be helpful to Susie, is I don't simply talk to the hiring manager. I will also talk to the senior people, or quite frankly, all the people in the group if I can. I want to know what organizations and associations, not just the manager, but everybody in the group is part of, online and brick and mortar. What conferences they go to, what conferences they've gone to in the past, what conferences they plan on going to in the future, what conferences they follow online with perhaps a special hashtag. Last week, Python conference was out in the week before last in Portland, and it was hashtag PyCon, P-Y-C-O-N. Man, there was lots of good people tweeting that I captured into a list for future uses and pilfering. Things like that are important to know. Online commuters and forums. In real life, when someone is at work and they don't have an answer, they may turn to the person next to them and say, hey Alexis, I can't quite figure this out. Can you look at it and see if you can help me? Alexis lists, Steve, you're not as bright as you think you are. I think you should go online, go check out Google. So Steve goes to Google and he has some favorite online communities and forums where he might ask questions or answer questions. I want to know where these online communities and forums are. For example, there's a really cool website called boardreader.com, B-O-A-R-D, reader, R-E-A-D-E-R.com. It's a website for searching community forums and sites. The way I use them in terms of recruiting is if I see a certain person is pretty active in a certain community or forum, sometimes they will have special nom to internet and not just their name. I will do, as part of my research, I will track the people who they interact with. And in terms of referrals, as is often the case, I found that people who are active on certain community forums don't view people they interact with as being referral fodder. So that's where this becomes a very interactive process. I'll also look at blogs. I love blogs. I love to know the blogs that people in a particular group, which ones they're active on, which ones they read, which ones they comment on. Because comments, any good sourcer will salivate when they come up to a blog that has lots of comments on it. Every person who comments, provided they offer a reasonably cogent answer, becomes someone to potentially recruit. More intake strategy session stuff. Obviously, degrees, certifications, licenses, depending, some fields have esoteric ones. We like to know who they are. What technologies, what niche products and category, what specific tools are used? Let's say you're looking for certain oncology researchers. There are innumerable number of types of lab equipment and testing machines. All those things I want to know. That's part of the ecosystem. The ecosystem is helpful to me. I want to go back to that one for 1 second. If you look at the ecosystem, which I haven't gone back to because that's the next slide, this is the ecosystem which we'll get to. Knowing everything about an environment lends itself towards knowing that each of these technologies has their own special community groups, their own special community forum support group, and each of those are opportunities and places to find people. So those lend themselves towards knowing what specific jargon, unusual industry terms. Here's something that's way off base. Here in New York State, I found out that members of the New York State political parties, they get special stipends based on the work they do. They're called Lulus. I love politics. I'd never heard of Lulus before. Every function has these special industry terms, abstruse terminology. Knowing those things, knowing not spelling out the acronyms, but knowing the acronyms and the special weird words are things that you can use to go out and find people. Finally, industry thought leaders. Which thought leaders in the business, in the field, do the manager and members of the group hang their hats on? Which ones do they like to speak? Who are the inventors they follow? By not just focusing on the hiring manager and also getting into the senior people, I am actually getting a much broader view, a broader picture of what the actual landscape looks like. And it's not just, it's in the job description and I'll know it when I see it. It's much more robust than that. And the more research that we do when we find these people, the more things we uncover. And again, setting this up as a strategy session, an ongoing weekly thing where you can feed back information, educates the managers as well and causes them to actually have more faith in you and perhaps lighten up on you when things aren't coming in as fast as they'd like them to come in. So let me talk about the ecosystem logo cloud. This is the one thing, I've shown this to countless CTOs and heads of software development, and I've done some for several companies. This is one example, this is another. The beauty of an ecosystem is, and you'll find later, if you don't know this already, that people like knowing their entire stack. They like knowing their entire environment. And the beauty of going through the process of creating a logo cloud, and there's no special format. This is one I've done. This is another one I've done in which, this is for almost like an ad tech company, where this is us. That's front end. Middle thing is back end, cloud, source control, and this U part is where I was focusing my searching on. So the beauty of having something like a logo cloud, and I call it 50 shades of the stack, you can ask the question, you should ask the question, what do you like and dislike about this? In fact, I will send logo clouds out along with very brief description of the general classes of problems and what do you like and dislike about this stack. It's one of those questions that get people talking, and it gets you listening, and it gets to the point where folks are saying, I like this, but I would prefer that it's something other than LAMP. I'm making stuff up on the go as opposed to real stuff. It's a rich conversation that I think everybody should have when you are having your initial discussions with people you're reaching out to. Simply assessing them based on the presence or absence of buzzwords, I think results in you missing out on people. Sharing your particular ecosystem with them and asking what they like, what they dislike, how they've worked in similar type environments is going to open up the conversation to the points where you're going to start getting the person involved into it, and you'll see how excited they get. The other question I like to ask based upon the ecosystem is something along the lines of, if you know me, you know I like telling jokes, even in interviews. And I'll use a question that's similar to this, or I'll make a statement that's similar to this. If you had just boarded a plane and discovered that your team of programmers had been responsible for the flight control software, would you immediately disembark? And you might think that so many people would not be honest and say, man, we have some of the worst architected software in the world. I have gotten that more times that I'm not surprised anymore, and at companies that are those marquee companies that your managers aspire to hire from. And it all is part of offering a human take on things, if you will. So the third thing is deliverables selling themselves. There are three slides here, and I'm going to go over them fairly quickly because it's one description that I wrote. I thought that was the best way to explain this. Deliverable is not, the job description says you have to produce high quality code. You remember earlier from having an intake meeting and talking about OKRs, I want the specific things. I want the post-it notes on the Jira board. I want to know. I want to know what those are, because those are the kind of things that are going to get people really excited. Why would the very best person there want to come here, leave there and come here? What would they be doing here that they wouldn't be doing there? That's what this is. And I'm going to read this slowly because I know y'all can read, but as I'm reading this, think about your job descriptions. Think about how rich or not rich they are in terms of deliverables. The core Hadoop layer, for which we currently have a senior architect, team lead, and one engineer, needs more software engineers. We're currently adding 50+ million ad impression records from digital set-top boxes every day, and the volume is increasing. Current size is over 4 billion data records in the Hadoop cluster. The new software engineer would work on ingesting new data feeds from sources such as smart TVs and build algorithms, Python, MapReduce jobs, making use of the data. Examples of such algorithms would be reporting need feeds for customers, nightly update feeds to set-top boxes, aggregation and filtering for export to SQL and visualization on Tableau, dedupe and reach and frequency calculations monitoring systems. We have one local cluster and we use Amazon EMR for nightly batch jobs. Development, and you see where this is going. Ask yourself, the existing foundation of an architecture that we have is proven to be very solid, so there's not much advanced rebuilding, redesign that needs to happen. However, Future plans will encompass using advanced business intelligence to find patterns in the data and advanced predictions, machine learning, optimization, and growth planning. Compare this to your standard job description. Which one would excite somebody more? Ask yourself that. Alexis, any questions before we go on?
Yeah, actually, let's see here. We have Rob Miner asked, well, actually, he said he loves the intake strategy session concept. And he wants to know what objections have you encountered and overcome from hiring managers? Some personal Steve happenings, as you will.
Personal Steve happening, objections, part of it is that's getting a little, thanks, Rob. I know Rob, by the way. It's a little off, it's a little bit to the left of what I want to talk about here, but I will say that I will, for lack of, I'll say it out, I will cyberstalk the hiring manager before the intake meeting. So I will know things such as, I will know what things they've worked on in the past, what I will look at their social media feeds that pertain to work, nothing more lascivious than that. I will look at, see if they have any inventions. I'll look to see their community forum activity, and I'll try to get a pretty good sense of what they've done ahead of time. And more, I don't think I've never had anyone say, "You're just a psycho. I don't want to have this meeting with you." It's more that, if I can find this about you, imagine what I can find about other people, and that's why I need this information from you. So I essentially work up a dossier on people and on managers, and let that be the guide to show them what good sourcing and recruiting, what good preparation can do for the short and long term. I hope that answers Rob's question. Was there another question?
Let's see. I don't want to go too far out here for you, but let's see. Are you currently doing any retained search, or have any exclusives you're working on right now that you can maybe try to tie back into some of the processes you were talking about?
I'm not doing retained search right now. That would be an offline conversation, but the process is the same. I've done retained search in the past, and the process. This is my engineer's head coming to a design that seems to work well for me, that I've continued to tweak over time. It doesn't change. The person who asked that question obviously is on the retained search side, so that might be a separate conversation afterwards. But all in all, the process is the process. You're having a human conversation about professional activities, and you want to be sure that there are no surprises at the end, and that's what this is all geared toward, is not having any surprises and ensuring that all appropriate stones get turned over to look for the good stuff. So let's carry on a little bit. Let's talk about how to interview for performance, what might work and what always works. All interviewing is not equal by any stretch of the imagination. Most companies have their interviewing processes, especially in tech. They're patchwork processes. Some leader comes on board, implements that, they leave. Someone else comes on board, refactors it a little bit, puts some new things in there, and pretty much you have, after a couple of years, or even with a startup company, in which they may not, the parties might not be that. Have that much experience with all this. They'll bring in what they know and they'll bootstrap it all together. The problem is especially with technical stuff, is we often fail. We almost always fail to answer the question, how do you define and score great code? For the most part, we'll know it when we see it. Now there are some egregious errors. There are some incredibly good websites, and I'll offer it up at the end in an addendum, which I'll have to write, where at least for the software development field, there are 25 most egregious errors, software development errors. It's a good read from from another course. The company, the organization is escaping me right now. I know it's associated with MITRE. But all in all, we fail to put any effort into identifying what is really considered to be great code, because many devs do. I hate when this happens. Sorry about that, folks. Many devs, great devs, do have slightly different ways of doing things. So are we taking those into account during the interview and assessment process? And I think in most cases we're not doing that. All development isn't equal. And now I know the first line sounds like something out of 50 Shades of Grey. BDD, DSDM, Extreme, FDD, Kanban, Lean, Paired, Scrum, TDD, Waterfall, etc. These are all different software development frameworks and methodologies. And companies might have different companies, will have different philosophies on their software development process. Within a company, separate groups may have different philosophies. So are you taking all these into account when you're bringing people in? It's not uncommon for a recruiter to find a great person who interviews with several different groups, and each has a different assessment of them. How are you taking that into account? And frankly, not all people work the same way. A great developer at one company may prefer just to hold themselves off in a closet, with black lights and playing Megadeth through the headphones. Somebody else may like to be micromanaged and have Yo-Yo Ma playing over the loudspeakers. Very bad examples, but are you taking these into account, or are you all the time trying to force a square peg into a round hole? These are the things that, in real life, not everybody is the same. You want the diversity of thought and background and diversity to make for an especially innovative and vibrant organization. I don't think we do enough of that. So what does work? Well, a couple of things that I found, and the record is I've been recruiting for 28 years. I was an engineer for 15 years in the carryover fashion, and I've been involved in the tech community, tech industry, pretty much my whole career. I found that, and I built quite a few software teams. What I found for me, and your mileage may vary, but for me, I've always interviewed the way the team works. So if you look at the previous, all these different, behavior-driven development, extreme, feature-driven development, lean, pair, scrum, test-driven development, waterfall. By the way, some of those are agile. Notice some of those are agile, some of those aren't. I try to work that into the process. If the team is a pod, let's say it's a 6-person pod, and one person leaves, you want to find a replacement for them. In real life, my opinion is make it a panel interview in a pod. So you give that interviewee a problem, one that's related to the OKRs we discussed earlier, and put them in a real-life situation when, in real life, they're allowed to speak to people around them. They're allowed to go to the internet. They're allowed to phone a friend. They're allowed to get up and get a new can of Red Bull 30 minutes into the session. Make it the interview and assessment the way the team actually works, in my opinion, is the most honest approach you can take. It does take some time to get used to, and there are certain reasons, and certainly it's resource heavy. But if you have 6 people, 5 people in one panel for 1 hour, you're actually saving a lot of time. You're not pulling resources away from the team over the course of a full day. I think it's much more time effective and cost effective. Draw me a picture. I will have everybody draw me a picture of their stack, of their architecture, of their environment, of their ecosystem, whatever you want to call it, and I will have them put an X as to where they work. And then we'll start drilling down into that picture in terms of performance, deliverables, what have you. That's the way I work. And the most important thing is incorporating the person into the process. You're not incorporating a candidate. You're not incorporating an engineer. You're incorporating a person into the process. And by that I mean, this, by the way, it accounts. This is for everybody. Technical folks, they want you to be honest. All you have to do is go out to the internet and type recruiters are, or go to Twitter, type recruiter fail, search for that one. You'll see the problems that we have as an industry. They want you to be honest. They want to know what the real job is. They don't need to know what the tasks are. Yes, I know I'm going to be developing software. I mean, that's what a software engineer does. Thank you very much. They want to know the entire stack. Even if you're looking for a front-end developer, they want to know the entire stack. They want to discuss your problems, your real problems. They want to be grilled by contrived CS 101 material that they had from years ago. They want a real mentor. They want to be heard once on the job, and they want to have an impact. They want to know that whatever they worked on, they can point to they go to their friends and say, that's what I did in some way, shape, or form. So during the course of doing this assessment, during the course of doing the interviewing, you want to bring all these things into the discussions as soon as possible and reiterate them, support them again and again. That's how you're going to have a human discussion. That's how the person is going to be much more enthusiastic, because they know you're not lying to them. It's really simple, basic human needs. In terms of what's happening now, and now we're getting towards the end of things, there are a number of assessment platforms out there in the technical space. There's CodeChef, Codeforces, Codility, Coding Game, HackerEarth, HackerRank, Interview Mocha, Spodge, TopCoder, and it goes on and on and on, and these are all really fine platforms. I remember TopCoder, and someone may correct me if they're listening, and I can't remember the fellows there, but they were in Glastonbury, Connecticut, and I remember speaking to them in 2003, perhaps, and they're still in the game. Many of these allow you to create your own assessments using these platforms, which I totally encourage. If you're using the canned assessment protocols, that means other people are too. That's like fishing, using a single worm on a line, 10-pound test line in the ocean, and you're not sure what kind of fish you want to go for. You just want to catch a fish. Without specifics, without creating your own assessments based on the real work that you have in your organization, based on the real deliverables, based on the specific problems that you have, then I think you're doing your hiring managers a misjustice. You're not serving them justice. That was the word I just made up. I'm sorry about that. One of the reasons why, and again, this little webinar is sponsored by eTechie. The reason I like eTechie, it's a human platform, and it integrates with all these other types of platforms, or can integrate. And imagine you have a very experienced technical person who has experienced many types of different frameworks, methodologies, whatnot, and they interview someone based upon the needs of a specific company, but they're able to pivot during that human discussion, based on the answers that another human being gave, in ways that these other purely algorithmic, mechanistic platforms can't do. And again, the reason why I signed on with eTechie is not because I like to use their names in webinars, but because it's an approach that I have used in the past, and it's a platform that I think works right now in many types of situations. So that's it. That is the 40 minutes of going through this stuff. There's a lot more. I will answer every question that you have, either now or by email. My email is, which I did not put on the deck, but I will put on it. Alexis, I don't know. You can give that to him, or should I just give it to him now?
Go for it. Just give it to him now, and then I do have some questions that came in. So
fabulous.
You
Okay, so my email is levy.steve@gmail.com. Levy.steve@gmail.com. You can tweet to me at Levy Recruits. Obviously, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you can send me a message. I'm on LinkedIn. All of your recruiters should be able to find me. Any questions you have there. My whole reason for doing this is to continue to help the community and minimize all my tech friends coming up to me and saying, can you please, please stop people from sending me the same email that says they love me, they love my code? How about being a little more specific than that? So on that note, we have Q&A time. Yippee! Go Alexis, or shall I say Dorothy?
I love it. I love it. I have a question here from Madeline Mann. Oh, I hope it's Madeline and not Madeline. I feel bad. But a question. Why does the intake meeting need to happen every week if the content is focused on, specific things? If it's focused on specific blogs, conferences, etc. Why does it have to happen every single week? What else is a part of that meeting?
Well, in the course of it, you're going to find things out. For example, you may find out salaries. In fact, you will find out salaries. You'll find out things such as their salary range is too high, is too low. You'll find that people will only leave for if certain things are there. They'll have additional questions about the long-term approaches, long-term strategies. It's hard to say. The more you feed back to the manager about what's happening, what you found out, the more questions that they'll have. Every week, if you see them with things like, what newsletters, and I don't think I went over this, and I should have. I like asking what newsletters they subscribe to. What things do they get that are related to their area? Do they read letters to the editor? If they're active on social media, are there certain people that they have come across that they find interesting? If you set them up at that original strategy session, they'll continue to feed you stuff every week. That's something you're just nurturing the learning. At the end of the day, the reason we do this is, frankly, to get them to say, look, I ran across this person at a conference, or this person said something interesting online. I don't have the time to look at them. Can you do that for me? That's why I do these sessions, is to continue to cultivate their abilities to go out and do my work for me. And the thing is, and if it's the group too, that they'll send you stuff. I've seen it in action, Madeline. The more opportunities you give them to give you things that they see out there, in forums, in community sites, on blogs, they share, and they'll let that be the formal time in which you share with them the search activity. It's a win-win, in my opinion. Hopefully that answered that. Hopefully you're not making a face.
It sounded good.
Well, it's true. What else?
Susie said she really liked the concept of drawing, when you talked about having them draw a picture.
Yeah.
And what are some good, if you're doing some screening over the phone, doesn't really lend itself to visuals, so what are some good workarounds for something like that?
Describe it for me and I'll draw a picture. Then I'll take a picture of it and I'll text it to you. Am I right?
Oh, well, hey.
There's nothing wrong with, like, okay, if you draw a picture, here's my tip, text me the picture, then we can talk about it. Or, again, we all know that there's software that allows people to draw on screens, but not everybody has that ability. But if they draw something out, or you can let them know ahead of time that I'm going to be asking you this question, draw me your environment, and then take a picture of it and send it to me so we can talk about it. We have these things called technology. They're fabulous. I'm being facetious. Susie, I hope it'll come across as a I can't say the word, but you know the word. But that's how you do it. More.
Is the word you were talking about expert?
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Your buddy Rob wants to know what objections you may have encountered from some hiring managers when it comes to the different time investment that's required.
Didn't Rob answer this question? Didn't he ask this question early on?
That's a different question, but we're gonna.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually not as much. This is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Mm-hmm.
And which goes along with I have one chance to make a first impression, so I make that whole intake strategy session a damn good experience, and that's where I spoke earlier. I bring to that meeting as much information about the hiring manager and perhaps some of the senior people in their team to show them why it's important that I know this and what I'm going to do with the information, and then they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. I try to make sense.
Yeah.
Next, more.
Well, Rob also wanted to know, and this kind of ties back to what Madeline was asking as far as some objections with doing things over the phone and online. But Rob was also wondering, how do you know it's not maybe the candidate's best friend sitting next to him or her helping out? How do you know it's the actual candidate that's doing all of this?
You don't. I mean, what am I going to do? If someone wants to lie, someone's going to lie. Believe me, when it comes down to at the end of the day, they're going to lies have a funny way of getting you into trouble. I don't worry about that. Honestly, I don't worry. If someone's going to go through certain, such machinations to lie to me, then eventually it's going to come and bite them in the ass. So I don't worry about it. I'm going to focus on the people who are doing it right.
We did have a question come in. I'm not sure who this is from. I have an idea, but they just want to know if you maybe have a quick Steve version of a nice little overview of some different stacks and methodologies that that anybody can apply. Just a general. Okay, I'm started. I need something quick. What's the Steve package?
I need something quick. I almost sounds like it's animal, but the Steve package, the quick to do what? So I don't understand the question. The quick to get. They want
to know if there's an overview. I'll read it. An overview of all stacks and methodologies that can be applicable to any company.
No.
Steve package.
No, I don't believe there is. I mean, there are different companies have. It's like why do some companies have primarily a Python stack or a Ruby stack or a Java stack or this and that. The language is the language. You're going to find, at least in terms of software development, a really good developer can pretty much learn anything. And it's the philosophy. But do they buy into the your general software development philosophy, which is typically set by the CTO or head of software development? And some people, waterfall still exists. It has its problems. Agile is great, and there are several flavors of Agile. Is one better than the other? At the end of the day, it's still all about execution. It's not. I wouldn't say one is any better than the other. My days of software development are over. So I'm not immersed into that, but I do know. I still have remembered enough to know that if most everyone buys into the general direction, the general philosophy, yeah, it's a pretty damn good start. So in terms of there's not a best stack for this or that. There is popular stuff. I know a lot of folks. There's a good website. It's called Git Awards, GIT, I believe it's GIT-awards. I'm going to share my screen with everybody so everyone can see this, just so you know what it is, in which gitawards.com, I believe, sure, that's what it is. Please be the right one. Please, yes it is, gitawards.com. So you can, for example, search by top users by city. It all depends. Let's say San Francisco. You can, in terms of JavaScript, this is, these are the top users on GitHub. You want to change it to something else. You want to go to, you want to do some iOS development. How about Objective C in San Francisco? Submit. Bam, different people. We're waiting. There you go. How about Des Moines, Iowa? Anybody in Des Moines, Iowa? And no, I guess Des Moines, Iowa is not quite making it. Let's go see what happens. Yeah, there it is in Des Moines, Iowa. So it's not that one is better than the other. It simply doesn't work like that. It's just that what typically things are used based on the perceived functionality, scalability, codability, maintainability, things of that nature. So no, in a long-winded way, I can't answer that. Sorry, Alexis.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Another question. So you're an engineer. A lot of recruiters aren't. How can people that maybe aren't so technically savvy, do what you do on a technical level to try to help validate, the
This is
process?
a great question. Great question.
Hmm.
It really is. This is something that I apologize for not bringing this up during the webinar. I should have. So thank you for asking that.
I
And I
think
have no
about
idea.
that. Thank you, Bala.
Oh, hi, Molly. So I think the thing to do is several fold. Number one, um, I immerse myself into the communities where I recruit, and I never go in there to recruit. I go in there just to meet the people. Um, I've I don't have any pretenses. I don't hand out business cards. I go and I say, this is who I am, but this is what I do, and I'm just listening. And quite frankly, the first couple of times you do that, they're kind of looking at you all hairy-eyeballed and everything, and they're going, okay, when's this person going to turn into a recruiter so we can kick them out? And then you don't. And over time, that you build, you start hearing things. You go to enough talks. Look, I think every recruiter should spend 1 to 2 nights a month immersed in the communities where they do business. Here in New York, I have coffee with my Python friends. I try to get there once a month, and it's gotten to the point over a couple of years where I'm going to go to Pi Gotham and probably do a session on careers for Pythonistas. I'm going out to B-Sides with a wonderful group of wacky technical recruiters in July. B-Sides is the world's largest hacker show. Going to do similar type things. You get a reputation over time. There's no short-term fix to it. The other thing I like to do is, there are these books called the Blank for Dummies. Take those. Go. Read those books. Take Code Academy. Take a very basic coding course. They take time, but it's like when you go to a foreign country, and I'm first generation American, French family. If people speak, pejoratively of the French, but I happen to know that if you go to France and you try to speak French, even if you butcher it, they'll appreciate the effort, and you'll realize how many of them speak English. The same thing with the technical community. Just take a code course, take a basic one, and when you go there, you say, look, I may be a recruiter, but this is what I'm trying to do, and I've had a problem with this aspect of some of this Python syntax. What am I missing here? You will get instant credibility. And the beauty of knowing the blogs and during the intake meetings, intake strategy sessions, knowing the blogs, knowing the forums, knowing the newsletters, things like that, you'll start reading them. And pretty soon, again, maybe you're obviously not going to be a developer, but the stuff will start making sense. And in another long-winded way, it just takes time to develop recruiting expertise for technical topics. And you don't necessarily have to be a technical person. I don't buy into that mindset that you have to have done the job to recruit for the job. Just put some effort into it, and show the folks there that you appreciate what they've gone through. what they've accomplished by being a student of that function as well. Thanks, Paula.
Awesome. And I think we can squeeze one more little one in, maybe?
Yeah, I have diarrhea in the mouth sometimes, so let's see how long that takes.
No, I love it. It's okay. I love it. Emily wanted to know how do you handle a strategy session that doesn't go so well? If it goes poorly, what do you do? What do you do?
Well, ever have a bad first date?
Girl, don't even. Yeah.
No, I went there. Don't go there, but I went there. You can always go back and say, look, you honestly, Emily, you regroup and you give yourself the hard talk. Okay, what happened? What didn't go well? What went well? And send the managers. This is what happened. Look, this is what I see. What happened? This is what I intended to. What I wanted to get out of it. This is where I didn't get out of it. This is what I think I did wrong. Can we do this again? This time I'm buying the coffee or the Red Bull. Look, we've all have had intake strategy sessions that have gone horribly bad. It depends on the people. Wake up on the wrong side of the bed. Sometimes you just ask the questions the wrong way. Ask for a mulligan, but do it on neutral grounds the next time, because typically you'll have them in the manager's office. Do it on neutral grounds. For the second time, just say, look, there's a Starbucks, there's a diner. Can we have it there? And you're both there helping each other. So at some point there has to be some sort of collaboration, and it might as well be good, and you might as well say it just like that. And don't give up. That's just what you learn from. It's not the number of times you get knocked down that matter. It's the number of times you get up that accounts for the grit. And you show them, the next time, do some more research based on what they did tell you, and go a little above and beyond. Emily, that may be something. I'm kind of reaching for things now, but if you want to email me or we can talk. By the way, I do pick up the phone. I do call people. I know how to dial number on that smartphone thing. So happy to do that offline and share it with the community. What your specific situation, and maybe we can come up with a set of rules or a set of solutions that would be that would be useful for other people.
Awesome.
But I'm pumped.
Well, I think that's good. I think we're good. We're going to wrap there. There's only
Fabulous.
I didn't get to, but I'm going to make sure I shoot those right over to you this afternoon, so that we
Cool.
can follow up with the rest of the people that wanted to talk to an expert today.
I'm not an expert, believe it or not, and if you know me, you know that I am. I make fun of myself. It is. I am just an expert is someone who stops making mistakes. A human being is someone who continues to make mistakes and continues to learn and simply do better, and that's what I hope to do. So.
Awesome. Well, it was amazing. We did record this, so we'll have the recording available shortly. So if anybody missed anything, don't worry. We'll get it over to you. And like I said, I'll give Steve all of the questions that came through, even the ones he did answer. I promise I'll send all of them over to him so he can reach out. And I just want to say thanks to everybody for joining us today, and thanks again to eTechie for sponsoring, and Steve for his human expertise today.
Thanks all. Thanks Recruiting Blogs. Thanks eTechie. Thanks audience.
Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Cheers.